Hey guys,
All right. Good morning.
good morning. So today we're going to talk about an interesting challenge that Josh is trying to complete. It's called the 47 Laker. And with that, I'd say, Josh, just give us a little brief introduction of what it is.
Yeah, so I guess I first want to start off with as a kid, I did a lot of swimming in the Adirondack Lakes. And my buddy had a camp in White Lake, just outside of Forestport there in the Adirondacks. And when we would wake up in the morning, his mom would make us swim across the lake, and then we would jump in the canoe and ride back in the canoe with her. And this is at like 6:30, 7 in the morning. And like I hated that as a kid. And we weren't good swimmers, but I remember it cold and like the fog on the water. And that's sort of ever since then, I've been very intrigued with swimming across or in open bodies of water.
That's
Even
interesting because you said you didn't enjoy it.
No, but
I was in your mind and you were intrigued by it.
Intrigued. See, that's the difference. Enjoying it, no, but intrigued, yes. And so I guess like what I mean by intrigued is like, could I or can I swim across this?
Okay.
And I guess the intrigued part led to me sort of just randomly trying different kinds of challenges like that as far as swimming across bodies of water. Nothing high level, mostly just to an island or off a boat back to shore, different kinds of things. And that over time, led to me getting interested in enjoying more of the open water swimming. My roommate in college was a 4-year collegiate swimmer. He had a lot of records at Utica College. He was from Bethesda, Maryland. And so I swam with him a lot in his off time, and not high level stuff, but just in that environment with the swim team, hanging out, doing some laps, learning certain things. And then after college, that's when I did more and more of these swims. And so last winter, I was reading the Adirondack Explorer magazine there that they publish. I love that magazine. And in there it said, open water adventure swimmers tackle new challenge. And I was like, wow, shit, like what's this? And so what the challenge is it's called the 47 Laker Challenge. And the people that I guess go into this challenge are called lake baggers, just like they call like peak baggers for the high peaks. And so the 47 Laker Challenge, I guess it's sort of a play off words with the 46 high peaks, right? That everyone knows about in the Adirondacks, 46 hikes over, 4,000 feet, I think, in the Adirondacks. So this is 47 open water swims in the Adirondack Park, unassisted, 1 mile or over with no wetsuit. And it's 47 swims. And so there's not a specific list. It could be out and back, it could be out and then you ride back. And so I'm going into swim number 4 on Saturday. We'll see how that goes.
Tomorrow,
yeah. Yep.
What are the 3 that you've done so far?
I did Blue Mountain Lake.
Yeah.
I did Little Long Lake, and then I did Twitchell Lake. So Blue Mountain Lake, I did, I just swam out and I ended up at a public beach. And then I always have a spotter when I do these swims. So Jessie, my sister, was spotting me in a 2-person kayak. And then we paddled back together. Twitchell Lake I did last weekend. That was an out and back. And that was an eye-opening swim. Ricky, I was telling Andy a few days ago about that. When I hit the turnaround point in that swim, it was like getting hit in the face with a bat, with wind, current, waves. the whole thing went from like, wow, I'm on cruise control. This is no problem. I can't believe I hit the turnaround at that pace. And I wasn't pushing it. But when I turned, the whole strategy changed. And it was amazing because I did not feel a current pushing me out at all.
And it was
but
just
when
it was because of wind direction, right?
Yeah, I
It
guess
was.
it was. And when I came out of the first bay and I hit more of the open water, that's when the wind picked up. But being that I was already in the water and swimming, I didn't feel the difference going with it. But coming back was a battle. I had to change my strategy a lot. Like side stroke was out of the question because you were just eating too much water because your head was above water. I had to go to more of a freestyle stroke it's called a triple stroke, where you will take 3 strokes with your head under, and then you breathe on the third stroke. So you're alternating sides that you breathe, but I'm underwater longer, not getting hit in the face with waves. I had to switch to that, and then breaststroke. So I would go under, take a massive stroke under, and then pop up, quick, and then back down. But when I popped up, and it's weird, it's like, I'm not exaggerating, but just these 4 to 6 inch waves compared to like glass on a lake makes a big difference between swallowing mouthfuls of water and not. And it's weird, like from shore, you would be, and again, I'm not an advanced swimmer for sure, so maybe this is part of it, but like, it makes a big difference. It did for me,
I could totally see that. Yeah.
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 Well, you have a spotter for all of these, right?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, because I was wondering, it's like running on land, I felt those same effects where, I have the wind to my back and I'm making good time. And then I turn around and I'm like, oh, let me do this next 5 miles back.
Yep.
And it's like all like into the wind. And I'm like, and you just hit that huge wall, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
But if I hit a wall, I can stop because I'm on land.
Yep.
But how do you, I guess, is that like more motivation for you to keep pushing since you're in the water? Or do you having that like crutch of someone there being like, oh, if I need to, I can stop at any time? How does that affect
Yeah,
you?
Josh, is drowning motivation to not to keep pushing?
Well, yeah, for sure, right? Yeah, because Jimmy or Jesse will just be waving at me as I think that, right? Yeah, I don't, tell you the truth, like I don't really consider quitting an option. And so that's the mindset I have. I don't ever, even in these first 3 swims, like maybe this will change, but like I'd have to have a serious issue to quit.
Yeah.
Like a serious cramp, which I've done long swims in pools where on those last few laps I cramp hard in my calves. If that comes up, you got to call that a day. A lot of those don't release for a while.
Mhm.
But no, I knew that I had to, like with that particular instance, like I knew that I just had to adapt.
Mhm.
And I knew it would be much slower going back. And so I had to not be panicky about getting there faster, if that makes sense. Like I just got to be in that groove and chip away.
Mhm.
And one way that I stayed motivated on that particular instance was I would pick a dock on shore and I would have that be my marker to where I am actually making progress back, because it's those little wins for me, that do it. So like, I think I was about halfway back on that difficult section, and I asked Ginny because we have my phone in the kayak that's tracking the distance, and
Mhm.
I asked her. All I did was spit out, "Where am I at?" And she said, "Don't worry about it. You're flying." And I knew I wasn't flying, but at the same time, there's a reason she didn't want to tell me where I was, whether I was farther than I thought or I wasn't. Because when I asked her that, there was a brief glimpse of like, am I going to run into trouble, further up on this course? I wasn't looking to stop, but you know, having 0.4 to go versus 0.2 to go or 0.1 is a big difference. Especially when I was already tired. And so, yeah, that was a motivation. So that was my first swim. You guys both were asking about like confidence or like support with a spotter. I found a product called a swim buoy. And this is what the triathletes use when they swim by themselves long distance. Is it's a $40 product that is bright yellow, so boats can see you and whatnot, and it drags behind you like 6 feet, and just far enough to where none of your strokes affect it, and it's a 15-liter air sac. And it's there again if you needed it for a life preserver, sure, it's there, but you don't feel a drag or anything. And Ginny said on this last one that it helped her be more confident as a spotter, knowing where I was at all times, because you know, you can get 20, 30 yards off and I could be in the middle of a breaststroke under and whip around, and for that brief second there's nothing there. But with that buoy being dragged behind, you know, that helped her a lot for sure.
How long does one of these swims take? I don't know how long it takes to swim a mile.
So in the pool, it will take me like 35 to 40 minutes. Open water, I'm right now between 45 and 57. So that Twitchell Lake swim with the headwind was 57. You know, the other two were 45 and 47. So a bit faster.
Is there much of a difference between, I mean, you've only done 3 of them so far, but do you think there's gonna be much of a difference depending on which lake you go to, or is swimming just swimming? Like it should all be pretty much the same?
I think current and wind will play a big factor. So like,
so it's probably really going to be more like weather conditions and stuff that make each experience different, as opposed to like each different lake, right?
For sure. Like, you know, I can cruise control a mile on glass water, like pretty comfortably, and like, you know, no big deal. This was the first strong headwind that I came across, but like, there are some pretty intimidating ones I do want to go after, like Big Moose Lake is big and slightly scary.
When you say big, Josh, are you going to do a bigger swim on that one because it's a bigger lake, or will you still just do 1 mile?
No, I'm going to be headed probably from shore out to an island. And so okay. I'll be in the middle of the wind and the strongest current possible. Twitchell, I shot down the middle, but if anyone that knows that lake, it's a narrow lake.
Yeah.
So your middle is like maybe 100, 150 yards out. It's not that far, you know. Blue Mountain, because Jesse wanted to stay close to shore, being that it was my first swim, we were probably 50 to 75 yards out at all times. And then Little Long Lake, again, is very much like Twitchell. It's a very narrow body of water, maybe 250 yards across. So I swam the center of that, but that's still, you're not far out. Swims like Big Moose, 7th Lake, 4th Lake, those are large. And when you drive by those, a lot of times you can see the water conditions. Versus a pond or some of these smaller protected lakes.
So the big ones are kind of intimidating because you're going to be a lot further from shore. And also the chop is going to be a little bit bigger, with more like wind hitting the lake and stuff. For sure.
There's a lot less protection, and there's a mental component. You know, like I said, I'm not some world-class swimmer, and so when you look back and you're 7/10 away from shore, yes, there's a kayak, and yes, you have your swim buoy, and yes, you are right, you're safe. I think I'm taking definitely those right precautions, but there's a mental component for sure, you know. And there's also a weird, and I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but I don't think so, because I've read about this with other open water swimmers. With having black water underneath you for long periods of time, there's a weird thing with your mind. Like, you know, I know there's not sharks, and I know there's not like weird things that are going to take me down, and I can't explain it because like I know that I'm okay. but
a blackout abyss is never very comforting.
Correct. You know, but when we drove by Seventh Lake last week, and I told Ginny, I said, you know, that'll be a good one. And she said, why in the world would you want to do that? Being the response was how large that is, you know, and I said, because it intimidates me, you know, I want to try that for sure.
Yeah. So
is there a list of how many people have done, how many 47ers there are?
Yeah, that's a good, cool question. So this article said, it didn't list any that have completed all 47. Now there's no list, right? There's a list of the 46 high peaks. So like,
that's I was wondering if there was something similar.
And that's an official club and whatnot. And maybe this podcast and some other articles will bring more light to this, but there isn't anyone, I guess, on paper that has officially done it.
Mm-hmm.
But the article said there's under 100 people chasing this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a very small group, and it started with a group of swimmers in the Lake George area. They were high-level open water swimmers that started lake bagging, quote unquote. And that's sort of how this turned into, like, let's get 2 or 3 friends together and let's check off some of these lakes, you know? But yeah, it's definitely not a recognized group yet. I think it's interesting concept though, because like when you talk about, you know, let's say the 46 high peaks, there's some people that go after that for time, for how quickly can I get those done. And so, you know, while I'm definitely not doing that with this challenge, just because of the logistics behind it, I think in the future, it would be very interesting to see, you know, and maybe my list or my tracking, because I'm being very specific with these. I'm using an Under Armour app, Map My Walk, that has a feature in there for open water swimming, which is weird because it's called Map My Walk. But Ginny or Jesse or whoever will keep that in the kayak for the distance and the map of the lake. So I have all of those. I'm keeping a blog of this. So pictures of the lake, the location, water temp, air temp, and then the map of the actual lake. So maybe in the future, someone can run off that, you know?
Yeah, I was wondering if there was a like a fastest known time for doing this, because people love doing that kind of stuff with, you know, with these challenges. Once you completed the challenge, it becomes how fast can you complete the challenge? So maybe in 10 years, there will be a list or a record.
Well, mine will say 10 years. And then someone will come along and like in 2 weekends, we'll do the whole thing.
Yeah, oh, totally.
And I'll feel pretty insignificant because a true open water swimmer could do 3 to 4 of these a day. You know, and they could probably do it every day or every other day for a period of time. You know, I'll just be very clear, like 1 mile of open water swimming to a swimmer is not a challenge. They'll do that in 30 to 35 minutes and they will look much smoother and faster than me. Again, I'm coming at it from a non-swimming standpoint, which may motivate people, you know, to jump in and maybe tackle that being they are a non-swimmer, you know, but I don't have a swimming background, so.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my question. If you had any goal in mind of when you wanted to complete it, like if it was like a year, 2 years or anything like that.
So this year, I have 3 more on my list that I definitely want to get to. Well, actually it'll be 4. I didn't anticipate, I'm going to try and get Lime Kiln in Inlet Saturday. That came up out of nowhere actually. So we're going to see, it's supposed to be really cold up there, but I'm going to try that. But the other 3 that I want to get to is Santanoni Lake. That's in the High Peaks Wilderness, right out of Newcomb. And so my favorite hike in the Adirondacks is actually not an elevation hike. It's a distance hike. It's to the Santanoni Preserve in Newcomb. It was an old farm and homestead years ago, 2,000 and some acres, I think. I could be wrong on that, but it was well into the thousands for that. And there was an old family with a farm there. And they built a great camp 5 miles off the road. And I'm talking like mansion. And the state has preserved this. And they built it on Santanoni Lake. and I want to swim that lake. And it's
Cool.
a badass lake because I think it's get it wrong. It's either Santanoni Peak or Goodnow Mountain is in the background of this lake. It's pretty iconic. And then you have the great camp that's there. And then the state gives you canoes and kayaks. So I would have to walk the 5 out, and then my spotter would have the canoe or kayak there. And then I would swim that and then walk 5 back. So that's a pretty busy day, 10 miles of walking with a 1 mile swim.
Yeah.
So that's the first one on my list. I want to do Mirror Lake and Lake Placid because that's the iconic, lake for the Ironmen, and they do a lot of training there. They have buoys set up. It's right in the middle of Lake Placid, sort of cool. And then the other one I just found, it's called Heart Lake. It's at, Andy, do you know that lake? Yeah, it's at the Adirondack Lodge, right?
Yep, at the lodge, yeah.
It's a small lake. It's probably slightly bigger than a pond, but it's surrounded by nice mountains, beautiful scenery. It's a pretty nice setting back there. I might have to do an out and back, or maybe I'll swim the perimeter to get my mile. I'm not sure, but it's a nice setting.
That's cool.
So yeah,
I wonder how many of these you're gonna have to hike into, because that's another component of this. Like some of them you get to just drive up and hop out of your car and swim. Yep. But some of them, depending on which ones you want to do, and if you're trying to do 47 lakes, I mean, there's gonna be some that you have to like hike a couple miles into the woods to get to. That adds a lot to it also.
It does.
Especially if you have a spotter hood and you need to carry a kayak back with you.
Yeah, so like a good example of that was 9 Corners Lake, Andy, where we rock climbed. Last year I did 0.6 of a mile there, out 0.3 out and 0.3 back, and then we carried a kayak out. It actually
it's a mile hike.
Yeah, a mile hike. So that's 2 miles of carrying a kayak plus the swim. And the funny thing was is that I didn't think that would be hard, but that was a pain in the ass to carry that 2 miles.
Sure.
You're bumping your legs, you're dropping it, you're out of rhythm with the person on the other end, you drop it, it was awkward. And so that's going to be an interesting component. One of the swims I want to do that requires quite a long hike back is is it Indian Lake, or Indian Head Lake?
Well, Indian Head is the formation, the rock formation that you look down at the lake from. I can't remember what the lake is called. Keep talking. I'll look that up. I'm curious.
Yeah, it's one of the most photographic lakes in the Adirondacks because it's a long channel of water with cliffs on both sides, and it's very epic. And it's a beautiful hike in. I think it's a 4-mile hike in, 4.5 mile in.
I was gonna say it's the Sable Lake. It's actually called the Lower Sable Lake. There must be an upper one also. But yeah, so when you're Indian Head and you're looking out at the lake and it's like that long Narrow lake with like beautiful mountains on either side. Yeah, that's Lower Sable Lake.
Okay. Yeah, that I want to do. And so I've had 3 or 4 people reach out to me that have heard about this, that I'm doing it, that have expressed interest swimming with me. And so it may, if I can find a good partner that I can rely on, then I would consider just doing it with them. And then we would have 2 swim buoys, definitely. Like that would be a requirement. Because I don't know, like you're right, like hiking back 4 miles with a kayak, like that's not going to happen, and even with a swim buoy, at this point, I don't have that confidence, to just hike 4 miles back by myself, swim a mile, hike, like there's a lot of room for error there. At least on my end, I'm probably pretty conservative, but
I'm kind of curious, Josh, what do you enjoy about this so much? Like, what's your favorite thing about it? Because I think of something like, I'm comparing it to, I hike in the high peaks, sometimes. And one thing I like about that is you get to the top of a mountain and you get some gorgeous view. You get to stop and look around and take some photos and just take in the vista and stuff. Or even when I'm doing distance running, I can plan out a route where I'm like running along some pretty roads and I can look around and there's some scenery and whatnot. When you're swimming, your face is just in the water the whole time. There's not like a lot to see or anything. So what's the pleasure in this for you? Is it just the challenge, or do you actually enjoy being in the lake and swimming? What's the deal?
It's the challenge isn't the main interest of mine. That's definitely a component of it. I think that's cool to check things off, but no, it is quite scenic for me. Because you're in that setting, you're getting warmed up, right? You're getting in, there's a lot of underwater life that's interesting depending on different lakes. Again, I've swam a lot, but the only 3 I have on record, I've come across some really cool things. Like you could, like when I was swimming in Blue Mountain, there were sections that I hit that were, I was snorkeling. Like it was really awesome. Like I could see 20, 30 feet down, clear as day, like fish and underwater stumps and, all this different, aquatic life, which was really cool. You hit patches of seaweed, which is interesting because you think it's an octopus on your legs.
I was just gonna say, you're like my octopus teacher of the Adirondacks.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And there is definitely, it's neat because people, so far, they see you doing this, they cheer when they're on their dock. There's parties that we've passed that'll be asking, the spotter, like, what are you guys doing? It is definitely scenic for me. But you're right. I am generally staring mostly down into black and then up at the blue sky. But I am doing it because first off, a part of it is hard for me. These aren't easy swims for me. It takes me like 30 minutes afterwards to warm up. There's definitely a cold factor that comes into this. For me, I'm very lean. And Adirondack water never truly warms up. The water temperatures so far have been about 68 for the lakes that I've been in. Mm-hmm. And so at a body temperature of 98 and you're in it for almost an hour, my core temperature is definitely dropping. And so that definitely plays a part in the mental challenge that I enjoy. When I was in Twitchell last weekend, when I hit that turnaround and headed back, I started to get some chills to where it would affect my breathing rhythm. And that fucked with my head because it's like mini shivers, but it's enough to where your breathing gets off. And then you've got the wind and you've got, you're just out of sync. Yeah. And you're like, well, I've got to get my shit together quick because you're treading water or you're just trying to figure things out. So I enjoy that. I enjoy the unknown with that for sure. Slight prep work with it, meal timing. You don't want to cramp, but you don't want to have, no electrolytes in you and, cramp the other way. But yeah, that's it.
Like the full experience adventure day, like you just enjoy kind of all aspects of it, from like the planning to just the long day of it, seeing other people out there. Yeah. And of course it is scenic too. I mean, just being on the edge of these lakes before you even get in, they're all beautiful. So
well, like Blue Mountain Lake, I think it was Jesse got a picture in just the scenery, it was like the backdrop and that water and I don't know, you feel pretty connected. I think probably hikers feel the same way, or, climbers when you're halfway up a cliff, overhanging these mountain ranges and you're 2 miles back. Like, I don't know. I think there's something primal to be said.
There's something cool about just feeling where you are, like you said, rock climbing, like just feeling like you're hanging off the edge of this cliff. It's like a really interesting position that not many people get into. And for the same thing, like swimming, you're out there in the middle of a lake, like, most people don't do that. And it's just kind of like, wow, am I really out here? That's a really cool place to be. I can see that. I would get like totally into that.
It is for sure. And I think that, whether I get a partner or two, maybe that is into it also could be a cool bonding experience,
That's true. Yep.
I know our trainer, Bob, there has expressed interest. A guy, Mike, and another guy, Vin, they're newer to this. And so I think we just have to make sure that they're ready for that, because we don't want to get 7/10 out and have to bail or something weird happens.
What? A quick question. What's your strategy as far as like what strokes you're using? Do you just swim freestyle the whole way, or are you switching it up every few minutes? Like, how does that work?
Well, yeah, that's an awesome question. So I guess it depends how I feel. My recovery stroke is side stroke.
Okay.
I'm just
That's one that you feel like you could just do forever and
I could
kind
do
of gain
that.
energy back. Yep.
Yeah, for a really, really long time. That's sort of like the Navy SEALs use a combat swimmer stroke. It's similar to that, except they hit an underwater portion of that versus above. That's a pretty reliable stroke. But freestyle is the fastest for sure. It's probably 50% faster than side stroke. But no, I alternate generally from freestyle to side to breaststroke. I like breaststroke when I'm in a good rhythm and my shoulders feel strong. That underwater section, I can create a lot of distance underwater, and then I'm up for that bob back and I rip that again. Ideally for time would be freestyle for sure. Okay. Like a true swimmer, like an accomplished swimmer, they'll do freestyle the whole way. They're just, it's significantly faster. The thing is with my freestyle, now I could freestyle all these swims easily, breathing to my right side. Now, both of you know I'm weirdly structured with my mindset and letting me get into these weird imbalances or relying on a crutch too much. I always say like, fuck that. Like I gotta go back now the other way. So I force myself to breathe to my weak side the equal amount as my strong side. And that sucks. Like, because it's not natural. And I will say I've gotten significantly better at that. But I will not, and you're asked most swimmers, they breathe to one side the whole way. I could definitely breathe to my right side for a mile. I would be no problem with that. But making myself go 10 right, 10 left, or that triple stroke where I'm alternating, my focus and form have to be super on with that left side rotation, or I swallow water or just, I get out of sync, But yeah, that's coming back on Twitchell's headwind. I did breaststroke and I did freestyle, and I did still alternate. But when I turned, it's a weird swimmer thing. But like when you rotate on that axis, you're on your neck, the head has to be hitting the wave and the wind instead of your face. A lot of people, when they lift to breathe, will want to face forward instead of rotating. So like when I say I'm only seeing the sky in black, I'm not exaggerating. I'm truly like a log in the water that's spinning. That's the axis that I'm rotating on. So I'm black, straight down, and then I'm straight up and slightly back is where I'm looking. I'm never looking forward.
So here's a stupid question, because I'm not a swimmer, and I've always been a terrible swimmer, actually. How do you keep yourself going in a straight line? Like, is that a challenge? Because you said you're not looking forward very often. Obviously, you must have to every now and then to make sure you're still like on target to wherever you're trying to swim out to. How often do you look forward? And is it a challenge to stay in a straight line? Because man, when I swim laps in a pool, I'm in like the other guy's lap, like, or the other guy's lane. Like,
I know. I swim laps. I don't swim lanes. I swim
bouncing off the walls.
Pretty much.
So, yeah, that's another awesome question. That's the job of my spotter.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and they know that beforehand. Like Ginny now is aware, and then Jesse was aware of it really quick. Like I will swim zigzags that you have never seen before.
And what do they do? Just hit you with the paddle? Just like bang.
Well, so they know what side I'm breathing to generally for the majority, and then they're stay 10, 20 yards. And every time that eye pops above the water, I can get a quick glimpse of where I am relative to them.
Oh, okay.
And so when I'm fatigued or, slightly, not where I want to be as far as feeling strong, I'll ask them to stay closer. Being that I have to put no effort into figuring out where I'm going. I just have to stay with that distance to the spotter.
Okay.
And that helps tremendously because I did what last year and this year I did an island out and back at Blue Mountain Lake. I think it was only half a mile, maybe slightly over. It was just for fun. And it was interesting because I told the spotter to stay behind me and I wanted to see how accurate I could stay with my direction. And you can't stay accurate at all. It's amazing. Like you will literally hit a 45-degree angle, like quickly. And if you're hitting 10, 20, 30 strokes, you are way off to where you want to be. And then you got to swim back there.
So much wasted energy.
It's a lot of waste energy for sure. So no, that's a job. It's not bad side stroke if I can see the shore. If I can't see the shore, then I definitely need a spotter. Breaststroke is fine, obviously, but it's the freestyle. You can get in trouble quick with direction. Yeah.
So, yeah, so you're doing your swims, right? And I mean, you could be just like everybody else and just try to get it done and over with, go there, you're like, if I just breathe to my right the whole time, I'd be fine. And you're taking these steps to breathe not only to your right, but to both sides. And you took on the challenge, even though you didn't really feel as comfortable with this type of a challenge to begin with. I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but like, what is driving you to make it even harder than it needs to be?
I don't know. I think there's a voice always in my head with like, if you're slacking or not. And like, my goal isn't to make things as easy as possible.
If you're slacking, what was that, Josh?
I don't like to know that I'm slacking. So like, what I'm saying is, so within the swim, if I know that I can just cruise right side breathing freestyle, and that's the easiest and the fastest and the most efficient. But I know that I'm becoming very imbalanced and deficient on the one side, so much so to where, let's say I pulled a muscle on the right side of my neck and I needed to breathe to my left side. There are tons of swimmers that you will talk to that said if they had to breathe to their offside, they won't be able to swim. It's just, they've developed such an imbalance with that. So yeah, I don't know. I like to just make sure that it's well-rounded. I like to be on the border of challenge and too easy. And so my goal isn't to get these done as fast and as easy as possible. It's sort of, when I did Blue Mountain, the air temperature was cold. I was shivering before I got into the water in the Speedo there, just waiting. Like I was cold. And it was 7 a.m. And it was like, you don't want to do this. And then the other side of me is like, fuck it, you're doing it, man. Like, definitely do. There's no reason other than you just being a little soft not to do it.
Now you got into cycling a little bit last year too. Not much, but you got a road bike and did a little bit of riding here and there. Do we see triathlons in your future?
No.
You seem to be getting more and more into. I didn't expect to see you biking and swimming in 2021, but here we are.
No, biking's cool.
We're not going to see Josh in the Ironman next summer.
No. I like strength training too much. I like gymnastics, jujitsu, obviously, I'm just doing this more or less for the experience, believe it or not. When I'm doing these swims, it actually isn't even registering in my mind about it being a workout. Like I'm not hitting it as a training day or, I burnt 600 calories. I'm not even really viewing it as that. It's more like I'm with someone cool or a group of people that's cool. It's sunny out. We get to go for a nice ride, drink some coffee, hang out. Like for me, it really truly is about the experience. Yeah. So no, I hate running. Like Andy, I know you like running. I don't like running. Biking to me is purely leisure. Like, I have no aspirations to be a hardcore.
Well, if Ricky liked biking, then we could probably do a triathlon as a team. We have our own individual events. But
Yeah.
We haven't named anything today that I enjoy.
Well, you know, what's funny is they have team triathlons all over the place, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't be against, I don't get excited about it, but like, I know Bob's doing a sprint triathlon in Cazenovia.
Just for the fun of the experience.
Yeah, because like, it would be interesting to me, just again, it'd just be the experience of like, how do you feel with the transitions? You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so what is the first, is the swim first? Yeah. You know, how do your legs feel getting on that bike? And then how do your legs feel getting off the bike? And like,
yeah, that's the biggest one, is the bike to the run transition. I hear that's like because you're using a lot of muscles using on that bike. And then when you go to run, your legs, they just feel weird. Yeah. And
yeah. Yeah, I think that would be neat. You know, the sprint distance, I can see myself gathering enough interest maybe in that just to say I did one. But you know, it's not on my list. So, you know, definitely. Yeah.
Are you going to continue swim training this winter? Go to the pool like you did last winter and kind of get ready for the next summer?
Yeah, the only pool I'll really have access to is in Florida when we're down there seeing family, because Hamilton, my pool that I swim at, requires now the vaccine. So,
gotcha.
You know, and it could change, and that's cool if it does, but it's cool if it's not. I respect it either way. But when I'm in Florida and we go down for good chunks at a time, you know, I'll swim. They have a 50-yard geothermal pool. Outdoors, it's really cool. It's only like 2 or 3 miles from where we stay. So yeah. But yeah, it's unfortunate because I would want to swim more, but I don't have access really. So yeah.
Well, cool.
Well, but yeah, I don't know. I think you know, anyone listening or whatever, I think where there's a will, there's a way. And so if you're interested in swimming or want to learn how to swim, and, you know, I took maybe 5 or 6 lessons 2-3 years ago with a swim coach at Hamilton College, and just the drills and the programming that she wrote for me alone transformed me from like bad to like decent. You know, but
did you do any in person with her where she watched your form and gave you tips?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Nice.
in person videos. I have a whole slew of swim drills that nothing to do with like freestyle or your conventional strokes, but like straight up swim drills in isolation for different mechanics and whatnot, and body line and positioning and breathing. And yeah, it's really, really interesting how quickly she was able to hack into how to just be a better swimmer, you know. You know, what's interesting with swimming is, and anyone that's listening that is a swimmer will realize, like, that distance, it's not so much an aerobic component as opposed to technique. Like, you know, if you go to the
YMCA, get that.
Okay, you can get that, right? Because the body floats. And so you can see someone that's like super, super fit but can't swim. And if they jumped off a boat and had to swim to shore 400 yards, they would drown, right? Just because they don't have the mechanics. It's not that they weren't in shape. They don't have the mechanics. But you can go to the YMCA on a Tuesday at noon and see like an 80-year-old swimmer swimming a mile. And they're going slow, but they can swim and they know the technique, right? And they're not in like world-class shape. And so, you know, it's never a question of like, oh, I'm out of breath, or, oh, I'm totally gassed. It's the technique. And if the technique is on, you can glide.
Yeah. Swimming was one of the most humbling things in the world for me, because when I was younger, I got a job as a lifeguard, and you have to pass some swim tests and stuff to be a state lifeguard. Boy, passing those tests was such a challenge for me. And I really thought that I was like one of the most fit people going into that. Like looking around me at the other people who are taking the test, trying to become lifeguards, I'm like, thinking to myself, geez, I think I'm like at the top of the heap here or whatever, and I had the hardest time of anyone. Like, it's amazing. These other people were just gliding through the water so effortlessly. And I'm just like thrashing and clawing at it and splashing everywhere. It's definitely a technique thing, and you have to know how to do it.
Well, it's like when people drown, in a lot of cases, they're only out there for 2-3 minutes and they panic, their chest gets tight, they start doing some weird things, take some gulps of water, and before you know it, they're drowned. Versus if they just relaxed, knew how to float, I'm not even saying swim, but just float, because the body floats. You can stay alive for a long time, but yeah, that's a good point. Ricky, when you went through your military training and stuff, were you in the pool, or what did you, I'm assuming you did some stuff.
Yeah, being in the Navy, we had to go into the water a couple of times.
Just a couple times.
Like, yeah, just a couple times. No, we had swimming training where we had to jump from like very high dives because to simulate the height of a deck of a ship.
Okay.
So you had to be comfortable with heights, which that disqualified some people almost right there. Then once you dove into the pool, you had to be able to get back up and then swim like I forget the lengths, but it was like you had to go like out and then to the right and then back, because they wanted to train you to not just swim in the path of the ship. And because if you just swam right back, there's a chance that you could technically run into the propellers. Like if you fell off the side of the ship, you could get pulled into that current. So you have to learn to go. So they taught certain techniques and things. I would say the hardest thing for me, one, I don't really like the water is one thing. I definitely have a newfound respect for, the water and the ocean, but I never enjoyed swimming, even though I was trained young. Like my parents sent me to, swim school, and I learned how to swim when I was like 5 years old. Part of the training in the Navy for visit board search and seizure, which is a certain elite group within the Navy, you had to do tactical swimming and rescue people, like in case any of our guys got injured and fell into the water, or if someone tried to jump the ship and you had to try to save them or get them back into custody. There were certain things that you had to do. And one of the techniques was kind of like that tactical side stroke, which I had never used before. But the reason that we use that is because you have one arm that you can grab somebody with, and then you have the other arm that you can actually do the proper technique.
Right.
And but that was
the same stroke that we learned in lifeguarding, because that sounds like a very similar way that you bring someone to shore when you collect them out in deep water. You got them with the one arm, and then the other arm you're doing the stroke.
Correct.
Did you find, Ricky, that, or Andy, extremely difficult to do?
I would say for me, definitely, because I don't know about Andy, but I was skinny. So I only weighed like 140 pounds. And some of the guys I was with, like they were like 200 something pounds. Like these were big guys, like 6 foot tall. And they paired me. I don't know why they paired me with the biggest guy, but I had to drag him through the water doing my side stroke. And
now, did you have a life preserver or a buoy?
So the thing that we do have is our tactical vest, which is also bulletproof, is also a flotation device.
Okay, that's awesome, and that's still hard as balls. But like I've done a few times with Asher. He's like 80 pounds, where we'll be just messing around in deep water, and he doesn't have a flotation device, and he gets tired. And obviously, we're not in any danger zone, but like I have to hold him, just what you were describing in that side stroke, and swim with him. But I don't have a life preserver on. And I'm telling you what, dude, I wouldn't make it far without a flotation device for myself or on him. Like 80 pounds of dead weight pulling you down using one arm and your legs. I would be, life and death situation, 100 yards. Like that shit is just, I don't know how you can go super far without a flotation device.
Well, I mean, I know Andy probably had a flotation device whenever he was
Yeah, I
in
was going to say
lifeguard.
it's much easier for us. We had that one of those like long, almost looks like an orange noodle, but they're a little bit thicker, you know, they're kind of like torpedo shaped.
Mhm.
And when you get the other person kind of propped on that, it's just easy to drag them through the water.
Okay.
Yeah. But like for us, we also had to tread water with all our gear because we're not just in that vest. So we have our whole tactical loadout with like, you know, we have our 9mm, we have our rifle on our back, we have ammunition, we have other, you know, tools and utensils. So we're not just us.
Yeah.
And the one thing is if we fall off, there's always the factor that that vest, it doesn't quite fit perfectly. So when you hit the water, it wants to come up.
Yep.
And so it can clock you out if you don't hold it down. So there's a whole method where you had to hold it down and actually brace yourself when you hit the water. Otherwise, you had the chance that it could come up and knock you out, which was a whole other issue. But we also did a lot of practice treading water with weight.
Yep.
So that was another thing that we did.
That's really cool, the treading water piece, because I wanted to mention that earlier and I forgot, but I've always done, I try to do it once a year where I do treading water for 10 minutes. Last year I did it in Long Lake in the Adirondacks, just at their public beach. But I think that's an interesting challenge for anyone to try. Swimmer, no swimmer.
To try that. That sounds fun, actually.
It is. It's a fun challenge. It's a safe challenge. And to me, gosh, it relates to real life as much as possible, right? Like, you know, maybe you can't swim to shore, but if you can tread water and scream for 10 minutes, you know, maybe opportunities open up for you. But try that, Andy, try that. 10 minutes, tread water. And I don't know, I think people listening here should try that too. I think that would be interesting, you know. But Ricky, in college, one of my buddies was a former British special forces guy. And we did some treading water in the Utica College pool with clothes on. They let us get in after hours. And treading water with clothes on is way different than a bathing suit.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're also in our full uniform.
Yeah, well, that's even worse because you've got shit on your belt or whatever you're carrying. Like, that's hard. Like, wet clothes are heavy clothes.
Yeah. But they also taught us some techniques. Like, even if, let's say you fell off your yacht or your cruise that you're on, whatever, and you have like a button down shirt and like, let's say a pair of jeans on, you can actually turn those into flotation devices.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought that was a very unique thing that we learned that I think everybody should know.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to, so the technique was you would tie the legs together so that they were kind of like solid, but they would form like a thing that could go around your neck. And then you had to have the opening of your pants, you know, right there. And you can bat the water. And if you bat the water, you get air bubbles that come up. And then you could technically inflate your pants, hold it together really tight. And then you would have essentially like a life vest made out of your pants.
Wow.
Yeah.
Could you do that today if you had to?
Yeah, I could.
Wow.
And you could do the same thing with like a shirt. Like if you had a shirt and you tighten and you tie the two, you know, like arms together, and you can do the same thing. It's not as efficient as the pants, but it still works to some extent.
Wow. That's cool. That's awesome. Well, there's another tip for someone to try if they're bored. Nice. Cool. Yeah, anything else, guys? If not, I think it's just cool to introduce people to that and maybe.
No, that was really inspiring. I like it a lot. I mean, it's such a cool challenge. And the more things that people can do outside, you know, everyone loves to go hiking and stuff. And some people do trail running or mountain biking and whatnot, but this is another really cool way to explore the Adirondacks if you're in this area.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to modify it. Like you could do 50 half miles.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a mile. Yeah.
Or you could do exactly what I did for years, was just choose, like, can I go from shore to this island? Or can I jump off the boat here and swim to shore? Like, little micro challenges. It doesn't even matter if you calculate distance or geek out at any level, but I think that's neat. Obviously be super safe with it, but like, I think that's interesting for people to to give those things a shot here and then, you know.
I want to try one of these with you. So if you ever want to do like a 9 Corners Lake or something, we should mix in a half day of climbing and then do a swim afterwards.
Oh yeah.
I think that'd be really cool.
Definitely. 9 Corners is epic. That was actually one of my nicest swims because that first channel, that's about a third of a mile out before you get to the big lake.
Yep.
That's like snorkeling. That was very much like the Blue Mountain setup.
Really clear water.
Super, super clear, maybe 8-10 feet deep. And you can see, literally, you feel like you're in the Caribbean. It's really, really cool.
And it's pretty glassy, which is good for me.
Yeah.
I don't need any added challenges out there.
Yeah, no, and I don't either. All right.
Something feels slowing you down. That's just me grabbing onto your buoy behind you. Gotta get a toe.
Nice. Cool. All right. Yeah, maybe that's it. We're sign off. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
All right, Andy, Ricky, we'll talk soon, and everyone listening. If you're looking to be a member, part of our community, co-movement.com, subscribe to YouTube or any of the platforms our podcast is on. We have 3 right now scheduled exciting guests that are going to be on. So anyone that's sick of listening to just us, we're going to have some really, and again, we won't disappoint. These are 3 people that are coming from seriously cool backgrounds.
Very exciting.
We're going to be releasing those in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. All right. We'll see you guys.
Yep. See ya.
Good day, guys.
All right. Bye.